Intro.
I've got one that can see.
Logic before authority. Hi guys, this is Daniel Alexander Cannon here on Logic Before Authority, part of the Supernatural.Show network. And today I'm actually just going to be talking to y'all guys and also telling you some of the history of when I was a young man. And when I was a young man, I was under the delusion of patriotism to a flag or to a country. When you're in elementary school, it's I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. And they sell you this whole dream of what America is, what the world is. And when I was around 18, 19, right in there, I joined the U.S. Army. Happening, everybody? I see you, Sig J7P. What's happening? Yep, it's something you have to find out for yourself. Either you can see it or want to see it, or you don't. So, military. I joined, and I first went in the military. I first went to basic training in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And then I went to Fort Sam Houston, Texas. Then I went to Fort Knox. Then I went to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, here in Massachusetts. So I'm going to take you and we're going to take a look at a little bit about each area and talk about it. I'm going to take you to Fort Bragg. Got a couple of neat little stories I want to tell you about. Possible one or two of them I could have talked about before. Fort Bragg is just north of Fayetteville, North Carolina. I was born in South Carolina, and right close to Myrtle Beach, a little town called Conway. And if we come in here, here is Fort Bragg, Fort Bragg. And I remembered when I was in basic training, because I wanted to find where I was at in Fort Bragg, because it's hard to remember everything. But I did remember for sure that there was these huge 4 turbine engine airplanes that would be taking off, flying almost right over our barracks where I was located at. And so with that in mind, I was able to look at the maps, come in here and see the runway where the path it would have taken, when they were taking off, they were really loud. And was able to find the barracks where I was at. A supernatural thing happened to me when I was in these barracks. There might be one or two of you that have heard me talk about this before. I say it's supernatural because the odds of it are just impossible. There were all kinds of things that happened when I was here. These were the barracks, these long buildings, the CO office was these smaller buildings here where they would hang out. And then there would be a CO here all the time that was in charge of a whole row of barracks, which were Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Okay, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Okay, and so you had a company name or number or both. And then you had Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. And I was in Charlie company. And from my recollection, I would have been either in this building right here where my mouse is pointing to, or either maybe one back where the building's actually gone now. Okay. They've torn it down or it burned down or whatever happened. There's several of them here, as you can see, that are missing. But amazingly, apparently they're still there. There's no street view, so you can't get a closer look really. But this was basic training, and it was quite traumatic, as you can imagine. Me being a young man that never really had a father figure in his life, or anybody much in my life that was disciplinary. I did have brothers that were older brothers, and my oldest brother had been in the military as well, which actually relates to the supernatural event that we're going to talk about when it comes to Fort Bragg. Before I talk about that, though, I'll tell you about another event that happened here, where one day, it was right at the beginning of where they were stirring up the talk of Iraq and Iran and all this kind of stuff. And it was before 9/11. I was here in 1989. Okay. And I also have a story to tell you about a song, a military cadence. A couple of you might remember I've mentioned it before. Military cadence that I came up with when I was in Fort Bragg. And it actually stuck and is now sung worldwide by military and also by football teams and apparently a lot of different groups. I'm going to show you a couple of videos of that here in a minute. But the first story I'm going to tell you is when they took us. Well, I mean, there's lots of stories, like the gas chamber. I'll give you little short versions of some of them. The gas chamber they took us into. And we were all in this long line to go in this little brick building. And they started going through and going in and coming out. And when they would come out, the guys that were coming out would have snot literally hanging all the way to the ground, some of them, from their nose. Like long, gooey, just where in the world did that come from? Out of somebody's head. But it did. And what they would do is they would have you put on your gas mask and you would come in, you would go in and the gas was already on, you might say, or they had already exposed the room to the gas. And then they would tell you to pull your mask up or off and make you breathe it. Get a good huff or two, right? And I was able to, you might say, deceive them so that I didn't get a real big huff. All I got was just a little bit, and it weren't good. It was bad enough, but luckily I didn't get a big puff of it, breath of it. And so I was able to get through it and get out and not be too bad, but it wasn't pleasant at all. So I remember them taking us through that. I remember them taking us out and us spending nights in the woods, digging foxholes and sleeping in the holes in the woods and all these kinds of things, that they do in basic training. I remember lots of things, but I'm just trying to think of a few things to share with y'all guys. I remember one night when they got us up first thing in the morning. And first thing in the morning is like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And you've got about 2 minutes to go to the bathroom, do whatever you're going to do in there, get dressed, and be outside fully dressed and have everything together and in formation, like 2-3 minutes max. And they got us up early one morning and they walked us out to this big field, and it was right in front of these big jet planes taking off from this airport that you can see here. Okay, the airport over there. And there was all these rumors of war. And so what they did was they took us down here to this pike field down here where you would do a lot of your exercise and PT, as they called it. Okay. And we were all out here, and this is directly in line with the airplanes taking off. See? So when these planes would be taking off, they'd be coming right across that field. Wow. And what they did was they spread rumors in the group that we were going to have to go to the Middle East, that there was a war that was starting and that we were going to have to go even though we weren't very prepared. And they got the rumor started, and of course it spread through the entire everybody. Everybody's talking about it and whispering about it. Then they took us off on a march. After that, prior to going there, we went to breakfast, which entails of walking in line, them putting food on the tray for you, and you seeing if you can eat it all before you have to throw your tray in the trash can or dump your food in the trash, what's left, and put the tray in the stack. No time for sitting down. You had about a minute to eat. You just packing it in your mouth and swallowing it as fast as you can. And but we went there and they spread all the rumors, and then they took us on this long march, and I don't know where they took us. Out here in the woods somewheres. But it was a long march because it took us all day long. We marched and marched and marched. And they even took us, and before we went on that long march, they took us and they got us our guns, as they call them, weapons. And we had our M16s, and we were marching and all day long. I mean, literally marching all day long and into the night. We marched all the way into the night, and then they got us somewheres, and I don't know where it was, where it was completely dark out, and they told us that we're going to march down into this trench. And we marched going into this trench that was dug in the ground, like not a foxhole, but a trench. And we all went down into this trench. You had no idea what was going on. None. All you know is they spread rumors about war, and then they marched us all day, and now we're at nighttime marking in a trench, and you can't see nothing because the trench was basically just above head high. And we all get down into that trench, and they told us that we're going to help each other, and we're going to come up out the trench, and we're going to low crawl until you find another trench. Okay. But when we came up out the hole, they opened up with an M60, several of them. And it was pitch black dark, and the M60 had tracer rounds in it. And I know most of you have never seen what tracer rounds look like coming from a machine gun. You might have seen it on a video or something, but not in person, and not coming at you, being shot at you. If you're down barrel, meaning in front of the barrel of an M60 machine gun, it's undescribable what that sounds like, and the fear that strikes you. Not only that, you can see the rounds going by you. I was watching the rounds as I'm crawling. I mean, I must have looked like Bugs Bunny running on his fingers and on his toes, not even touching the ground, just must have been pretty close to that, because I was moving. I was trying to find that other trench. But these rounds that were coming by, I was looking, of course, you can't miss them. And they looked like, I mean, they couldn't have been, but they looked like they were low enough that if you would have stood up, you would have gotten killed. I mean, they looked like literally a foot above our head while we were crawling. I guess it was a optical illusion thing, maybe a little bit or something, but then I don't know. But as we're crawling, then all of a sudden, grenades start going off. There were bunkers that were surrounded by sandbags that were dug around, to the left of us and to the right of us, you might say. And these grenades started going off. Huge explosions that just, I mean, you're laying on the ground, basically crawling for your life, and these explosions start going off. And along with the explosion, you get the flash of light as well. So obviously it created a realistic war scenario to fulfill the rumors that they spread amongst the platoon that morning. And it was honestly, it was terrifying. And there were guys that were crying, and some of the guys turned around and bailed back into the original hole, the original trench, trying to get away from having to crawl across that field because it looked real. And for me, I didn't slow down long enough to consider turning around, because I just wanted this over with, because it was terrifying. And I thought if I could get in the other hole, it would just be over. And basically it was, once I got into the other hole, it went on for a couple more minutes while they were still traumatizing the hell out of some more people. Young men like 19 years old, 18 years old, 20 years old. And it was something that you can never forget. And I wonder sometimes what that does to some people, that kind of absolute terror put upon you without really your permission. And you think, well, it ain't that bad because you weren't going to get hurt. When that machine gun started going off, and it's so loud that every time the round went off, you could feel the concussion from the blast hitting you, boom, 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 pounding on your body. And then the grenades go off. That's like 10 times as bad. Boom. Really serious trauma. Luckily, they only did that once while I was in the military. They only did it once. Thank goodness. Now, after that, they actually marched us back all night long, and then kept us up all day the next day, all the way through the next night into the next day in the morning time. And then they took us into a classroom and had like an instructor in there teaching us something. I don't remember nothing he said, but they were teaching us something, and then you had to pass a test in order to get out of the classroom and go to the mess hall to eat, and then maybe get a chance to go get some sleep. This is going on the third day of us being awake and being traumatized in multiple ways. And everybody was standing up because you couldn't sit down because you would fall out of sleep. But everybody's standing in this little classroom thing, and they're trying to give us things that we need to try to remember to pass the test to get out of there. And I remember some of the guys standing around, they would just fall out across the desks, in the floor, knocking stuff everywhere. They just pass out from exhaustion. And I was exhausted. I managed to get through it, pass the test, you might say, and I didn't pass out. But I mean, there were guys that were getting hurt by falling on the floor and on the desk and things, and had to go to the hospital. It was just some of the things that, why do we do this? I mean, I think you guys know that people in general in this world do not hate the other people in this world, no matter what the color is, no matter where they're from. And you can get on an airplane right now and land in 500 different locations in different countries all over the world and not even speak any of the language, and people are going to be nice to you. It might not be perfect. And if there is any hate, it was built into their minds from media. But yet, we have to go through building up wars and lies and traumatizing the hell out of people for nothing, for the gain of a few in this world. And then sometimes when you're in the military, they'll send you somewhere where you end up having to die. And they call it honor. There's no honor in it. It was all a lie, just a fantasy. Somebody else's fantasy, somebody else's dream. And somehow, for an awful long time, we've been all asleep dreaming that dream. So, Anyways, let me tell you another story, a supernatural story that happened to me when I was in these barracks right here. Yeah, like I said, there's the CO office up here, and then there were the line Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo companies. And right here was the old PX. It was like a little retail store. You would go in there and you could, they would have things you could buy. You know, you didn't get the privilege to go in here until later in basic training. But there comes a point where they would let you go in here and buy a couple things, you know, to have. And what was bad is you'd go in here and they would have dirty magazines on a rack on the wall in this building with all these 18, 19, 20-year-old ain't seen a girlfriend in 3 months kind of deal. Ain't seen a woman in 3 months. And they're about to lose their minds. And it was like a setup, because if you tried to get one of them magazines or even pick it up or touch it, they were waiting on you to do it, you know. I remember another time they took us over here, one of these buildings over here. I'm going to come back to the supernatural story in a second. But just come to mind. It was later in basic when we were getting our photos taken with our Army gear on. It was our official military photo, you know. It was over here somewheres. Anyways, we came over here and it was late in the evening, actually. And this was in like February, March. So it got dark early. It was starting to get dark, and there was like a NCO pub or something that was right beside where we were at. And we were all in standing formation in the parking lot while we were waiting to go in and get our picture taken. And just across on the other building, there were people who were going in there to have a drink, a beer, whatever. And there was a window on the side of the building where we could see. And this girl, I said girl, she was more like a woman, you know, she was older than us, but she was still young and pretty. She got up in the window and started dancing. And all of us standing out there in formation, you know, 18, 19, 20-year-old sexually overdriven young American men. And she might as well just throw the 5-gallon bucket of gasoline on all the boys, because they were about to go wild. Seemed like another setup. But while she was doing all that and acting like she was going to take her clothes off, they made us go to attention and about face where we couldn't see nothing. And yeah. Anyways, just one of those memories that stick in your head. Let's go back over here to the supernatural story. So, CO's office, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Now, I mentioned my brother earlier. I had an older brother who was in the military. He was in Vietnam. And he actually came to, I sat down one time, we were talking, and he was in Fort Bragg also for training before he went to Vietnam. And we got to talking, and he was asking, you know, like, well, where was this and where was that? Was the little PX there where you could go in and get drinks and such right close to the barracks? And I said, yeah, actually, yeah, the training barracks, these are the training barracks. But yeah, these training barracks, they're basically a 2-story, as you can see, rectangular shaped building with a single front door on the side of the building, down on the kind of like towards the lower end of the building. There's a single door that goes in, and you can either go to the left and go on the lower level, or you can stay straight ahead and go upstairs where it takes you on the upper level. And all there is in there is a bunch of bunks, meaning bunk beds, 2 beds, one on top of the other, metal racks. Anyways, we're talking about the different locations of things and then which companies we were in, and kind of find out we were actually staying in the same company, which was right around in here, right here. And we're talking about it, and kind of find out he was also in Charlie platoon, Alpha Bravo Charlie. So he was in Charlie platoon in the same company. Huh. And we were talking about the barracks and how they looked, and did you have come in the door where the building's long and rectangular and there was a bunch of them all around? And yes. And you come in the door on one end, there's only one door. Yes. And the CO office is down at the end of the line. Yes. And Charlie company too. Yep. So we figured out all of a sudden we had stayed in the same bed, or excuse me, the same building. He was there basically about the year I was born. My oldest brother. He was there getting ready to go to Vietnam about the year I was born. And then 19 years later, I end up in the same building, same company, same, even the same building. Then we talk about, well, were you downstairs or were you upstairs? Well, he was upstairs. I was upstairs. So we were both in the same building on the second floor. I mean, what are the odds of that, And then we even talked about, well, you had the racks down each side of the room, the windows, and then just 2 long rows of racks, right? Yep. And bunk beds, yep. And the old metal gray racks, yep. And I said, did you sleep on the lower bunk or the upper bunk? He said he slept on the upper bunk. I was like, wow. I was like, which bunk were you? Were you like down at the end or up to the front? He said, I was the 4th one on the left. I said, I was the 4th one on the left. And I slept on the upper bunk. What? How does that work? Anybody want to explain it to me? Me and my older brother slept in the same spot on the upper bunk in the same building, looking at the same ceiling, thinking about home. 19 years apart. Right here. Charlie Company. Now, you might say that's not necessarily supernatural, but I don't know. I think there's something there. Must be, right? The odds against it must be, billions to 1? I don't know. I wouldn't know even how to try to figure it out, but that happened. That happened. My brother, Carl. And he's still with us. He's still full of fire. And so, yeah, I don't know how to explain that, but that happened. Me and my brother laid 19 years apart, approximately 19, looking at the same ceiling, sleeping in the same bed. Just amazing to me. So that, lots of other things happened, of course, but that was basically Fort Bragg. Let me take you to my next destination. After I got out of basic training, I went back home to see my mom because she was sick for several days. And then I had to ship out to Fort Sam Houston, Texas. Oh boy. It was not at all what I expected when I got there. I had just come out of basic training. I was full on brainwashed soldier for the most part. And I was tough as nails, 6'2", 200 pounds, no fat, could run like a deer. I used to, matter of fact, here at Fort Sam Houston, I used to be the one that would carry the flag when we would go out and run as a group, a platoon. I would carry the flag and I would run loops, circles around the whole platoon while they were running. I would run around them in circles carrying the flag. So Fort Sam Houston, to be honest, really, this was just a big party. Fort Sam Houston. Yeah, you were still in the military. Yeah, you still had to do what you were told. You had to be in formation. You had to keep your hair right. You had to do a lot of things. But this is right close to San Antonio, Texas. And we were always getting 3-day weekends. I was here for I was in basic for like about 4 months. And I was here for I think it was about 4 or 5 months. And I'm not even sure what they taught us. I mean, they tried to teach us how to type, and I still can't type. They tried to teach us a lot of medical terms because I was in a medical MOS, medical job. But really, most everything I remember here was, well, we stayed in some barracks that are no longer there. They were located here, but they've been torn down, and some new buildings have been built where they were at. Okay, they were here, and there was this golf course right over here, right beside us. And then there were these fields over here where we would go do PT sometimes, and then that golf course there. I got a story about the golf course I might tell, but I don't know if I should or not. It's funny, but it's not really righteous, I might say. But it is what it is. You know, we've all been young. We all know the things we've done. Things that we know now that we shouldn't have done. We kind of knew then we shouldn't be doing it. Anyways, we were staying here in the barracks were, matter of fact, I think I have a picture of the barracks. I can show you. Maybe if I can pull it up again. Actually, oh, here it is. Yeah, that's what they looked like. And I stayed on the third floor in one of these buildings that looked like this. They're no longer there now. They've been torn down, like I was showing you. And we were always having, after we got done with our stuff during the day, because we'd go to class. And when we got out of class, we were free to do whatever we wanted. Nobody was in charge of us as of about like 4 or 5 o'clock. And there was always guys that worked for pizza companies here walking around with bags of pizza We called him the pizza man. Hey, the pizza man's here. And got to do quite a bit of some fun things. Mostly what was going on was chasing girls, because what they did, see if I got a proper picture here. Like this barracks right here would be all guys. Right next door to it would be all girls. So you got a whole barracks full of 18, 19, 20-year-old men or boys. Right next to it, you got a barracks full of 18, 19, 20-year-old girls. Now, could you see how anything could go awry? It did. A lot. But that's the old barracks. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you about Fort Bragg. When I was in Fort Bragg, there come a period, and this almost has a supernatural element to it too. There come a period while we'd be marching, we'd be singing cadences, 1, 2, 3, 4, and everything to do. Singing kind of like, and it helps your mind pass the time and ignore the hardness of what you're doing. And there come a point where I asked the drill sergeant if I had a cadence that I'd come up with that I wanted to sing. And he surprisingly said, yes, go ahead, soldier. So I did. I led the platoon with my cadence, and my cadence was called Way Down in the Valley. That was the name of it. And it started out something like, whoa, 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 way down in the valley, I heard a mighty roar. It was the sound of mighty Charlie, a kick and echo to the floor. Whoa, whoa. And it would go on with some different lyrics and everything, depending on the situation and what was going on. You might modify the lyrics, but it was always, whoa, and way down in the valley. And some years ago, and a few of you have probably heard me mention this before, but a few years ago, for some reason, I started looking up the cadences because I remembered that I had done that one. And was I surprised to see, here goes somebody trying to contact me on Facebook from overseas, and they're gone. That's why I can't be on Facebook. Which, not that I'm against people from overseas, it's just scammers everywhere on Facebook. Anyways, I was surprised to find out that my Way Down in the Valley, as you can see here, had spread worldwide in the military, but then not just in the military, also in sports and other arenas. And so, I'll play a little bit of this for you. Where's the volume at? All right, take a listen. So you might say it went viral. I don't know what it was about it. the cadence or why it was meant for me to do that. And now it's one of the favorite top cadences sung by military across the entire world. Way down in the valley. Like this is Army graduation for Fort Leonard Wood, and I started it in Fort Bragg in 1989 is when I came up with it, approximately 1989 in basic training in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And then, of course, there's some other instances out here I can show you. Yeah. And here's another one. This one's actually in a bar and someone's singing it. Probably ex-military, but check this out. They've catcalled this guy to get up and do it. So here you go. Kind of got his own version there, but he's got way down in the valley. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Got that down. And here's some more football guys doing it. So you can hear him right at the beginning of it. It says way down in the valley. Kind of. I don't know why, but kind of chokes me up. Not because I'm proud of it. You know, not that. Hang on just a second, guys. Yeah, I know the sound on these videos isn't that great. It's what I've got. You can hear, like this one, you can hear it a lot better, of course. You know, with these guys singing it. So, anyways, that is just something I did, and I have rewritten it now. Been working on it for quite a while, over a year, and I've rewritten it. And actually on the website, on the Supernatural Show website, TheSupernatural.Show, you can go and read the new lyrics. It's on a document that's shared on the website. It's under like projects or something like that. But when I originally created it, it ended up turning into kind of more of a war chant. You know, like football players going to war with other football players and soldiers going to battle and this kind of thing. And so I decided I wanted to change it, you know. So I think it's on here. Let's see. Maybe not. Let's see if I see another spot I might put it. Well, I know I put it up there one time. I have to look, but anyways, the point is that I am redoing it, and I'm going to change it to what it should have been to start with. It's going to still be whoa, 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 and way down in the valley, but I'm going to change it to be a song of worship and a song of being down in the valley of the shadow of death, where you're still being protected by God and the Holy Spirit, and still being able to overcome against all odds the dark ones, Satan himself, Lucifer, the darkness of this world, the prince of this world, you know? So, Fort Sam Houston, mostly just a big party. Yeah. Nothing really to brag about there at all. Then I was transferred to Fort Knox. Fort Knox, not really ton of stories to tell here either. I wasn't here that long. I had made a foolish move and got married after I went to Fort Sam Houston. I came back home to visit South Carolina, got married. My girlfriend that I had, and within a year we were divorced. Less than a year, unfortunately, because she was, well, let's just say she liked variety. And many years later, she come back to me and talked to me and apologized and said it was her fault. And so she ultimately, as she got older, owned it. So there is that. So most of you are familiar with, the whole Fort Knox thing, right? Most of you have seen this image before. I'll show you in a second. Like there, Fort Knox, where there is no gold. As you can see, there might be something there, but I highly doubt it's gold. This is when I was there, it was not protected very well at all. And I don't know what they do there, but anyways, Fort Knox. I spent about a year here, and I worked at the medical hospital, on base, and started learning, doing what I was doing, working. I was like working in the admissions area for the emergency room or for the just the hospital itself in general. I didn't have a really strongly military type job in the military. I had more of a pencil pusher, what then ultimately turned into computer stuff a little bit later. Because when I went through high school, I went through a course called computer repair electronics for 2 years that got me interested in computers, technology, things like this. So I had a little bit of an edge on understanding it. And yeah, I spent some time here. It was okay base, okay experience overall. But then when I went through my divorce, I applied for a transfer, a exchange. They called it an exchange. If you could find somebody somewhere else in the country, a soldier, that wanted to come where you are, that had your same MOS, you could switch spots. I'd take his job, he'd take my job. And this guy was in Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and happened that he wanted to go to Fort Knox. Now, I didn't want to be at Fort Knox. I didn't care where I went. The reason I didn't want to be there is because I was trying to get over the memories of the less than a year long failed marriage, so I got the opportunity to take off to another place, so I did. So Fort Devens is a base that is actually closed now. The old entrance area where I would come in all the time, come out and go this way, it goes to Boston. Come out and go that way, it goes to Worcester, Massachusetts. And I got on here and I was looking to see if I could see the old hospital or see the old barracks and things. And, I actually found the exact barracks I stayed in. They're still there. Right here is where I stayed. This barracks. I was on the second floor, about a third the way down the building, about right here. And I was on the upper side, this side up here of the building. My windows, I looked out across this parking lot and this field right here. And this is definitely the exact spot. I remember this was storage area, just like it is still. The parking lot was here. There was the big field here. We would get out there and play football in the rain when the hurricane came through. And over here where the mess was, the mess hall where you could go eat, which I did plenty of. And I was stationed in the actual hospital for a while. The hospital's been tore down, and since then, it's there. It's back over this way, but it's not there. And then they moved me. I worked in the hospital I was working in the records room, and was doing really good at it, and got really good at the job I was doing. But there was a civilian woman who worked in the records room. They had civilians, if they didn't have a military person to fill the spot, they would have civilians they would hire to do the job. And there was a girl there, a woman, she was older, and her name was Miriam. And I didn't realize at the time, but she had a huge crush on me. She used to make this stuff called lumpia. Let's see here. Lumpia. Lumpia. And she would make it and bring it in. And, I just loved it. And then I noticed she started, I didn't pick up on it. I noticed she started bringing it in quite often and bringing it straight to me. She was making it for me, which was very sweet and very nice. And I sure took her up on the lumpia, because if you get the right recipe and do it right, this stuff is delicious. I don't even remember what was in it exactly. I just remember the name and that Miriam made it. Anyways, Miriam, like I said, she was married to a military first sergeant or something like that. And she was civilian wife, but she had a crush on me. I didn't realize it exactly. I was When I was younger man, I was really aloof to knowing if women liked me, to be honest. I was shy for the most part, and I didn't know. I'm still a little bit that way, kind of, but I just didn't understand women's signals. And so I didn't know that she was digging on me, you might say, and bringing this lumpia to me every week. But somebody noticed, because all of a sudden I get orders to be transferred to the TMC, which ended my lumpia, which that was bad. But after I was moved, I ultimately later on asked, why was I moved? And they told me because Miriam was infatuated by you and was bringing you food all the time when she wasn't even cooking it for her husband. Not good at all. So that's why they moved me. But when they moved me to the TMC, TMC was within walking distance of here. And I remember going out over here eating breakfast. And I would walk and cross this field right here and come to a road, either this road or the next road. And I would go down this way a little bit. And there was a TMC building. Now, from what I can tell, it's gone. Because it was right in, it wasn't no further over here. It was right in here. I don't know if it was right here. It looks like there used to be a building there. And it did set back off like this. So this might have been where it was. Either that or it was here and it's been torn down and something else built. It was a little troop medical clinic, TMC. Hey, Soul 7. My awesome co-host. See you in the chat. Hey, Cooper. So, TMC. I was the person that handled all the records, with all the medical records and organizing them. I was the only one there doing that. I was basically in charge of the office. Although there was one NCO he was a sergeant. He was of higher rank than me that was there. He was kind of in charge, but I did everything. And this is where I ultimately also began to double train as a medic, to be able to ride on ambulances or even in other situations as well. And I also, you had all these medical records and they were all just so unorganized. And I don't know why it struck me to do it, but I started literally going through, and these medical records would be an inch to an inch and a half thick. There's all these pieces of paper. They didn't have anything electronic or digital back then at all. And in this medical records, it was just like one piece of this lab result or this thing or that thing, all stacked on top of each other in this one fold out medical record thing. And I started going through and organizing it all by date and getting it all put together by what it should be with. And I was probably responsible for about, I don't know, I'd guess based on how many file cabinets we have, probably about 2,000 medical records for 2,000 soldiers. And I organized them all. And then I decided that I wanted to get a computer, because they actually did have them then in about 1992. They didn't have the internet yet, but they had computers. Or they did have it, but they didn't tell us about it. So I was able to get my hands on a computer, and I started numbering all the medical records, a numbering system. And I created a program where I could track the medical records in the program as to if we had it or if the soldier had it. Just something simple. If it was checked in or checked out. If it was checked out, who had it? And so we started running reports on this after, because this took, like a year for me to do all this. And we started running reports and sending them out to all of the COs for all the different companies all over the entire base. And they started returning the records like they were supposed to instead of keeping them. Keeping them or being lazy or whatever it was. Technically, by rule, you're supposed to turn it back into the medical clinic or into the hospital, depending on where you were assigned to go to get checked out at, sick call. I think if I remember correctly, it was called sick call, wherever you were going to go to sick call at. Now, so after I got all of them numbered, got them all organized, I did all that hard work, innovative work, created the first computerized medical tracking record system in the entire military. One day my sergeant said that I had to go up to the main hospital to see the CO, the commander of the hospital. I was like, oh, good Lord, what'd I do? I don't know what I did. We go up there, and I go in, and they actually give me a medal. I think it was called an ARCOM or something like that, an Army Achievement Medal. This little, shiny piece of metal with all these little designs on it, and everything says you've been a good boy. And, but ultimately, it really didn't mean nothing. Because by this time, my mind could only think about trying to get out of the military. Because I felt like someone owned me. And I didn't like that feeling because I couldn't just decide I wanted to move somewhere or do something different or, because there were ramifications. You don't come back or don't show up and they'll come get you, throw you in a jail cell. And then once they're done punishing you, you still got to serve all the time that you had left before you went into jail cell. So that didn't seem like a good option. So all I wanted to do was get out of the military. And I had probably about a year left or something like that. And for some reason, and I still to this day don't understand why, but for some reason, Clinton came up with what was called the Early Out program in his first administration. The Early Out program. And I was like, heck yeah. I don't lose nothing or none of my benefits or this or that. No. Like, yeah, sign me up. Well, I ended up getting out early, but it was only about a month early. But that month was, that was good. Got out a month early. And while I was here, working here, and staying over here at the barracks, of course, right here, I was actually, when I would go home during the like 3-day weekend or even like you get 30 days a month vacation when you're in the military, which is kind of nice. And I would go home to South Carolina, which is where I'm at now. And I would go home and see this girl that I had a crush on when I was a teenager. She was younger than me, though, and in my mind, too young to marry her. But I always had a crush on her. Her name was Kim. And I'd go home and see her and visit with her, maybe give her a peck kiss on the lips, but she was raised by what I seen as a good family and was a respectable girl, not one of these girls that you meet at a nightclub. Not that all girls that went to a nightclub are naughty, but I think you know what I'm saying, you know. Anyways, I'd go home and see her. We'd go out, go to dinner, go play putt-putt golf, and do things like that, you know. And then one day, and also we'd be talking on the phone. There was a phone in the barracks. And it was just outside of my room. We didn't have them in our room, but there was one in the hallway. And people would call it, Kim would call it, and it would ring. Or either I'd call her. Most of the time I was calling her because it was kind of hard to get me because you might not be there. You might be asleep. You might be whatever. Or nobody might not even answer the phone when it's ringing. So somebody had to just happen to be walking by and hear it ringing. So I'd call her a lot and talk to her. And we'd write letters and stuff. You know. And one day, my first sergeant called me into the office. And he told me that they had been contacted by a Miss Kim or a Kim, and that I was harassing her, and that I was no longer to contact her in any way. No phone call, no letters, nothing. Just leave her alone, and that's an order. And I was shocked and a little heartbroken because I thought something was going on there. I thought that maybe I actually possibly found a real wife. But I was told that she didn't want me to call no more. So I didn't. And what I didn't know was that there was a snake in the grass. There was a girl that was in the barracks that would come there, and she would hang out with the girl that was across the girl that was seeing a guy across the hall from me, straight across, a guy named Ronnie. He was seeing this girl that would come there and hang out with him, and this girl had a friend that would come there with her. And she was always talking to me, and I talked to her sometimes, and but you know, when I'm the only person I'm taking serious at all is Kim. But I had been told that I had been harassing her and not to contact her anymore. So I didn't. But then shortly thereafter that happened, this girl makes the moves on me, right? And is just constantly always there. I'd come home from the TMC and she'd be sitting in the parking lot waiting on me. And it was just, I mean, if I would go out with Ronnie or go out with one of my other friends, we'd go somewhere. They even chased us down the highway one time, following us. And I remember one time we pulled over and I told her, I said, you know, you're not going to make me like you anymore by trying to force yourself on me. And then we drove off. But over time, unfortunately, she was able to work her little ways and ended up getting her way because she was showing me everything possibly good about her, who she was, and this and that, and I ended up taking the bait and married her. What I didn't know was that she was the one that called my commanding officer. She was the one that called and said, "I'm Kim, and I don't want your recruit calling anymore." What happened is that in my room, I had a little desk with a drawer on it. And in that drawer were all my letters from Kim and my pictures from Kim. She was about 17 years old, thought I was awesome, thought she was awesome. But my now ex-wife, Rebecca, had called in, pretended to be Kim, and got me ordered to not contact Kim anymore. So when I went home on vacation for a weekend or whatever, I didn't contact Kim anymore. But all my letters that were in that drawer, I remember when I finally realized that they had all disappeared. They were all gone. All the letters, that had the names and the addresses and all these things on them, they were all gone. The pictures were all gone. And the wool was pulled over my eyes for a long time. And because I was raised that I was, when you get married, you're supposed to, if the woman doesn't go out running around on you, you're supposed to stay with her through good times, hard times, all these good things and stuff. And so I did, and I was married for 17 years to that person. And ultimately, for various reasons, we ended up getting a divorce. And then when I came back to South Carolina, as things end up to work out, I'm now with Miss Kim again. Should have always been with her. But we've talked about it. She knows the story. She knows I got bamboozled. It just goes to show you, sometimes in life, it's not just big, rich, older men that will trick you into believing something to get what they want and make you believe the American dream. It can also be someone that's standing next to you. It can also be someone that's pretending that they care about you because you have something they want, whatever that is. But like I said, the story ends on a good note because I'm now with Miss Kim. Ain't that right, baby? It just came in just a moment ago, and hearing the end of my story here. So, Fort Devens, that's the end of what I'm going to share today. Okay. And it's just stories about life. And, because I know y'all guys hear me on here a lot, and I share a lot with y'all guys, and you have access to me. I'm not like other YouTubers that you can't access. You can literally just call me. Phone number's on the website. Or you can text me or whatever, and I respond. Sometimes it's a little slow, depending on which way you choose to contact me, but I do respond. But I want y'all guys to know that I'm real and that I have had a life. I've had good things happen. I've had bad things happen. And I'm just like you. I'm now trying to do something good. For a long time in my life, I chased things for the wrong reason. The reasons were not even my own. They were given to you when you start growing up. You got to get an education. You got to get a wife. You got to get a car or a pickup truck. You got to get a house. You got to get a big debt. And then you got to work for most of your life, and then you got to die. It doesn't have to be that way. You can choose to do what you want, still currently, based on your passions and your beliefs, and not based on the seeking of riches or the seeking of false beauty. None of those things last anyways. They all go back to dust. It's like us. In the end, the only thing that matters is how you treated people, what effect, good effect, positive, righteous effect you had on the world that you visited, and what you learned, the knowledge that you seeked. For it's one of the only things that I believe you can take with you. So, what's happening, Roxy Piles? Super Dave, Super Mike. Thought you were going to miss today, Super Dave. To see you, buddy. I see Miss Kim in there too. All right, guys. Well, you've heard enough of my military time. I might share my time after I got out of the military, went into the working world, where you have a job or either you become self-employed and all that, and my adventures in that area. I might share that possibly coming soon. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be doing the Supernatural.Show. We have the whole crew here pretty much. We'll have Super Dave, Super Mike. Yes. We'll have Miss Kim. We'll have Roxy with the Roxy Files, TheRoxyFiles.com, the Roxy Files YouTube channel. We'll have Shannon, Children of the Most High YouTube channel. And we'll have Super Dave, like I said, Super Dave 44. He has his own YouTube channel as well. And I thank you all for listening to me. And maybe, just maybe, you know me just a little bit more now. I love you. We'll see you tomorrow on the Supernatural Show. Bye-bye for now.
I've got one that can see.
Logic before authority.